ॐ वेदऋषयस्समारभ्य वेदान्ताचार्या मध्यमाः योगीरां सुरत्कुमारपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां रत्नागराधौतपदां हिमालयकिरीटिनीं ब्रह्मराजऋषिरत्नाढ्यां वन्दे भारतमातरम्. In the last class, we had glanced through the Ramayana epic. Though the epics are historical narratives, a lot of allegoric significance is attached to them. The Ramayana epic, especially, it has got an allegoric significance. Rama, the word, means Sarve Ramante iti Ramaha. That supreme consciousness which revels in the bosom of every being, that is Rama. That is the definition of the word Rama. Who is Sita? We find in the Ramayana that while Janaka was tilling the land, Sita emerged, and therefore she is considered to be the embodiment of Prakriti. Rama is Purusha and Sita is Prakriti. When Purusha joins Prakriti, that is Jivatma, the Supreme Self in the physical body, Prakriti, is Jivatma. This Jivatma, though it is the reflection of the Paramatma, because of its wedding to the Prakriti, it has to pass through the Sansara Chakra, the ordeal of worldly existence. That is the Yatra through Vanavasa, Rama's life in the Vanavasa and all those problems. The Jivatma wedded to the Paramatma, which is in this samsara, it is always attracted by worldly attractions. There we find the golden deer representing the worldly attractions appearing before the Jivatma Sita. She is attracted to it, and because of that, Rama wedded to Prakriti, he goes after that to capture it, to satisfy the Jivatma. And therefore, Sita is trapped by Dashamukha Ravana, the 10-faced Ravana. The 10 faces are Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. All these evil qualities, personification is Ravana. And the Jiva is caught in the trap of this Ravana, the monster. How to get rid of it? There comes the help of the highest intellect and sadhana. I told last class, Manojavam Maruta Tulivegam Jidendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vadatmajam Vararayuda Mukyam Sriramadhudam Mahavira Hanuman. He is the embodiment of discipline, virtues, highest intelligence. These come to play for the retrieval of Sita from the clutches of Ravana and to bring her back to the Paramatma Rama. And once it is achieved, the Rama Pattabhisheka takes place. The glory and greatness of the self once again becoming the reflection, embodiment of the Supreme Self. So this is the allegoric significance that we find in the Ramayana. Now today we are going into the Mahabarata, another great epic. Mahabharata, unlike Ramayana, it has different stages of development. Of course, the author of Mahabharata, the authorship of Mahabharata is attributed to Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa, the son of Parashara and Satyavati, He became Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa because he was born in an island, and therefore he was known as Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. He was the greatest genius of the land, embodiment of all knowledge and wisdom of this land. Not only Mahabharata, but even the Puranas, they are also attributed to Vedavyasa. He is considered to be a versatile genius who created the entire spiritual literature for the land. He is described as tall, majestic, and very austere figure. And the wisdom that he created, he inherited from Parashara, he passed on to Sukadeva, his son, and all this knowledge of Bharatiya spiritual wisdom has come from Parashara to Vyasa, Vyasa to Sukadeva, and through generations it has come. This Mahabharata is not just a work authored by Vedavyasa. Scholars point out that centuries have gone through in the making of this Mahabharata. They say that the original Mahabharata was known as Jaya. In the present day form, Mahabharata is consisting of 1 lakh slokas, but it was originally the story of the war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And in later days, a lot of material was added to this Mahabharata, and it became a voluminous work of 1 lakh stanzas. It is not homogeneous, it is all inclusive. Of course, many didactic material and spiritual literature from outside, they have been incorporated into the Mahabharata also in the course of centuries, and it has inspired many scholars, not only in India, but even from outside. We find that Mahabharata has been recited in Cambodia from the 6th century BC, and even Greeks have referred to the Mahabharata. The main theme of the Mahabharata, as I told, is the war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. It is a war between selfishness, greediness, aggrandizement, and dharma on the other side, valor on the other side. And in Mahabharata, like in Ramayana, women are the yardstick of the virtue of a society. In Ramayana, Sita was abducted by Ravana, and therefore a great war broke out. In Mahabharata, we find that the humiliation of Draupadi in the court of the Pandavas, that became the seed, the main cause for the destruction of the Kauravas by the Pandavas. Treatment meted out to the women, that is the yardstick of our Hindu culture, Indian culture. Only difference we find in Ramayana and Mahabharata is there. In Ramayana, the war between Rama and Ravana, there the enemy is an external enemy. Ravana is external, he was the ruler of Lanka. Whereas in Mahabharata, it is a fratricidal war. That means war between brothers, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. They were the progeny of Bhishma through Vichitraveerya, Virya's wife through Ambika and Ambaliga. They were the wives of Vichitraveerya. Through Levirate, they didn't have children, and their Vichitraveerya could not get children, and therefore, through Bhishma, through Levirate, Amba and Ambika, they got the children, the Pandavas, the Kauravas, and the Pandavas, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, and through them the progeny came. And Mahabharata is the war between these cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. In Ramayana, the wicked was vanquished. All those who are opposed to Rama, they were considered wicked and they were vanquished in the war. But in Mahabharata, we find a clear differentiation. Here we find unconquerable heroes like Bhishma, Drona, Karna. They were all on the side of the Kauravas. And the way in which they were vanquished, in Ramayana, Dharma was foremost. Rama had to tell Ravana, Indruboi Nalaiva, go today and come tomorrow, because I will not fight with you when the sunset comes. He observed all the discipline for the war. Whereas in Mahabharata, we find that questionable strategies are adopted even by Lord Krishna himself to vanquish these invincible enemies. Krishna played tricks to vanquish them. Here, the end justifies the means. There, in Mahabharata, the means were as pure. In Ramayana, the means were as pure as the end. Whereas in Mahabharata, the end justified the means. Another significance of Mahabharata is the mystic number of 18. Mahabharata consists of 18 divisions. The war was for 18 days. The armies on both the sides, there were 18 Akshahunis, divisions. And the essence of Mahabharata that we find in BhagavadGita, it consisted of 18 chapters. Not only that, the essence of those 18 chapters were in 18 stanzas in the second chapter, last portion, Stitapragna Darshana, the 18 stanzas of the second, last 18 stanzas of the second chapter, that is known as Chitraveerya Darshana. So the 18 mystic number has great significance. The Mahabharata, in its northern recension, it consists of 82,136 stanzas, whereas in southern recension, it consists of 95,586 stanzas. The period of compilation of Mahabharata, it is from 4th century BC to 4th century AD. So, centuries have gone through in the making of that literature. Winternitz says one date of the Mahabharata does not exist at all. So you can't say that the Mahabharata was written in such a period. It is a work of centuries, and in the course of centuries, it attained the status of the Vedas. The present work of Mahabharata, it has included many stories and legends that came in the later period. For example, the story of Shakuntala and Dushyanta, the story of Nala and Damayanti, Yayadi, the story of Rama, and the story of Savitri and Satyavan, etc. They have all been included in the later versions of the Mahabharata. The description of the war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, that is 20% of the Mahabharata. And then comes the didactic materials, spiritual discourses like BhagavadGita in the Bhishma Parva and Dharmas, exposition Rajadharma, Abadharma, Moksha Dharma in the Shanti Parva. All these didactic materials are all included in the later days. And the scholars attribute a supplement to this Mahabharata also, which is known as Harivamsha. It consists of Vishnu Parvam and Bhavishya Puranam, 317 chapters with 16,000 stanzas. So it is a later addition to the Mahabharata. The material for this later edition, it has been taken from the Vishnu Purana, the Bhagavata Purana, the Bhavishya Purana, and the other Puranas. Now the Mahabharata, 18 Parvas, 18 divisions, it is not of uniform size. Some of the Parvas are very huge and some others are very small, of unequal length. The smallest of the Parvas is Mahaprasthanika Parva, which forms the 17th Parva of just 120 stanzas. And the biggest division, Parva, is the Shanti Parva, which consists of 14,525 stanzas. That is, half of the epic is covered by Shanti and Anushasana Parvas. The number 18, as I told, is hallowed number. The number of days of the war is 18. Now, there are conflicting theories to explain the rise of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata does not conform to Matthew Arnold's definition of an epic, because there the definition of an epic, it is about one hero and the story. There is a uniformity in the composition, a continuity. But in Mahabharata, you don't find such, because it is a compilation of many of the works of later days. So you don't find any uniformity here. So that is one viewpoint. But there are scholars who believe that ultimately the whole of the epic, it has got one goal, presenting dharma, and all these are explained. In the Mahabharata. The synthetic school, they say that the whole material is synthesized. So it presents the dharma as the uniform material that is discussed. The traditional view about Mahabharata, according to Indian tradition, the author Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, as I told, he was born to Parashara and Satyavati, and he performed, it is said, he performed long penance and produced Bharata of 24,000 stanzas, and he taught it to Sukha, There is another reference to the composition comprising of 6 million stanzas. So, the number of stanzas in Mahabharata in different periods, it must have varied. As we found, the story is the war between Dhritarashtra's children, the 100 children Kauravas, and the 5 Pandavas. Drona is the teacher for both the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and Bhishma is the grandsire for both the Kauravas and the Pandavas. We find that in the Mahabharata, Yudhishthira, being the senior most, he is crowned as the king, and that creates jealousy in the minds of the Kauravas, and Pandavas are sent to Varanavata, a forest life, just like Rama's exile into the forest. By some tricky games, the Kauravas got rid of Pandavas and sent them to the Varanavata, and there they tried to kill the Pandavas, but the Pandavas escaped from in the exile with the help of Vidura, and later the Panchali Swayamvara takes place, marriage of the 5 Pandavas to Draupadi. It is said that Kundi had told them, whatever you get, you must share it equally to the Pandavas. And therefore, when they won the Panchali Swayamvara, Draupadi Swayamvara, when they came and reported to Kundi that they have won a precious gift, without knowing what that gift is, she said, share it among yourselves. And they literally took it, and the Panchali became the wife of all the 5 Pandava brothers. Duryodhana once again, Dhritarashtra once again calls back Yudhishthira, and he is crowned as the king and emperor with Indraprastha as the capital. For the Kauravas, he had given Hastinapura as the capital. But still, the jealous Kauravas, they want to usurp the position of Pandavas, and therefore they invite the Pandavas to play the game of dice. And in that game of dice, the Pandavas are tricked by Shakuni's nefarious tricks, and once again they are exiled to the forest. In the forest life, we find Yudhishthira confronting Dharmaraja, Dharmaraja asking questions to Yudhishthira about Dharma. All these dialectic materials we find in that Ajnatavasa, and in Ajnatavasa, in Virata's place, the story of Kichakavada. The Kicha is also incorporated there. The Pandavas, after the completion of their Ajnatavasa, they wanted to get back at least 5 villages for them, but even that was refused. The friend and guide of the Pandavas, Lord Krishna, he goes to the Kauravas, pleads with them to give at least 5 villages to the Pandavas, but they refuse, and that results in the war, the Kurukshetra war, and we find the bitter 18 days battle between the Pandavas and the Kauravas described. And Krishna in the Mahabharata, we find he plays a dual role. He gives his army to the Kauravas because when Krishna was resting at that time, both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Duryodhana and the Pandavas, they approach Lord Krishna for his support. And Krishna says, I will give my army to one and I will stand unarmed on the other side. Duryodhana, out of greed, he feels that the army is better than an unarmed person, and therefore he chooses for the army of Krishna, and Duryodhana is given the army of Krishna, but Krishna himself stands on the side of the Pandavas. He is not taking up arms right away in the war, but he comes there as the charioteer of Arjuna, and the great war takes place between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. In the war field, we get that mighty storehouse of knowledge and wisdom, BhagavadGita. When Arjuna finds his own teacher, Bhishma, the Drona, and his grandsire Bhishma, and his cousins are all on the opposite side, he feels some guiltiness. How can I kill all my own kith and kin and even my acharyas? So, in the battlefield, when Krishna conducts Arjuna to the battle, to the forefront of the battle, he pleads with Krishna, how can I kill my grandsire Bhishma and my teacher Gandivam Samsati Hastat, his weapon, it falls down from his hand. He says, no, I don't want to fight this battle and kill my own kith and kin for usurping the kingdom. Let the Kauravas take it. I will retire to the forest as a mendicant. I don't want to fight. And it is in this scene that we find Bhagavad Gita preaches the highest wisdom. Karmanye vadhikaraste maphaleshu katajana. You cannot give up your duty because of your attachment to Bhishma, to Drona, your teachers, and to your kith and kin. You cannot escape from your duty. You have to come and fight out. Dharma is to be established. Dharma is much more important than all these relationships. And in the Bhagavad Gita, in the end, we find Krishna convinces Arjuna to go ahead with that war. So here in the Mahabharata, Dharma is the foundation as well as the material of the entire epic Dharma Shastra, Mahabharata. And in the Shanti and the Anushasana Parvas, we find the exposition of Rajadharma, the duties of a king and emperor, how he should conduct the kingdom. And then Apadharma, when calamities arise, how we have to confront them. Yuddha Dharma is also included there. In the war front, sometimes means end justifies the means, and you have to use questionable means also in the war, and Krishna himself demonstrates that. And of course, the Mahabharata epic, it includes the moksha dharma, Bhagavad Gita and Anushasana Parva, Bhishma's discourses, they all point out to the attainment of the highest wisdom virtue by an individual. The whole life is a battle for that, and that moksha dharma is presented beautifully. The importance of dana dharma, that is gifting to the needy and the poor, That is also stressed very much in the Mahabharata. And the Arthashastra and the Niti Shastra, economics, how to conduct the Rajadharma, conduct the political existence of a kingdom, and the Niti Shastra. There we find in Vidura Niti the virtues that an individual must adopt in his day-to-day life. They are all described in the BhagavadGita, and in Sanat Sujadiya and Anugida, they are also supplements to the Moksha Dharma. These are all included in Mahabharata. Therefore, in short, Mahabharata is a manual of bhakti, karma, jnana. Sankya, Yoga, Vedanta, Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktism, all these are combined in this great epic. It is a synthesis of religious and philosophical systems. It is said, Vyasochistam Jagat Sarvam. All that we find in the world, all wisdom, all moral and ethical values propounded in the world, they have all originally come from Vyasa himself. It is said that what is yadihasti na anyatra, whatever is told in the Mahabharata, it is sarvatra, everywhere, and yad na iha asti, that which is not mentioned in the Mahabharata, you cannot find anywhere else. That means the entire world of wisdom is in the Mahabharata itself. So, this is in short the sum and substance of the Mahabharata epic. As I told in Ramayana, the allegorical significance of Rama as the Supreme Self, Sita as Prakriti. Similarly, in Mahabharata also, we find the symbolic significance. Dhritarashtra, he is the representation of ego and egocentric desires. He knew that Pandu's son, Yudhishthira, he is the right person to become the king and emperor. He agreed to the advice of Bhishma and others, but unfortunately, his egocentric desire of seeing his children usurping the power, that created the whole war, Mahabharata war. So, Dhritarashtra is the embodiment of ego and egocentric desires. Vidura, we find a very noble character, Vidura. He is the embodiment of Buddhi, because he gives the right advice. Buddhi, the work of the Buddhi is to give the right advice, and we find in the Mahabharata, Vidura is the representative of the highest Buddhi, and Bhishma, he represents tradition and values, virtues. He is the representative of all these values and virtues and dharma, embodiment of dharma. So, this symbolic significance is very important, and Mahabharata is considered to be the highest scripture, an encyclopedia, an encyclopedic scripture of all aspects of human wisdom, philosophical, cultural, economic, political, and administrative. All these fields of wisdom, they are all incorporated in the Mahabharata. Therefore, it is considered to be an encyclopedia of Indian culture and heritage. Mahabharata has been translated into many other languages. The story of Mahabharata, they are reflected in a number of poetic works in other languages also. Even in Sanskrit, various aspects of Mahabharata, for example, the story of Shakuntala, Dushyanta, it has become a great poem written by Kalidasa, Shakuntalam. Like that, the story of Nala and Damayanti, they have all taken form of epics, small epics, narratives, legendary stories. So, Mahabharata is on the whole the compilation of the total wisdom of Indian culture and heritage. The later days Puranas, when we will have a peep into the Puranas, we find how the ideas glorified in the Mahabharata have been highlighted in the Puranas. So today we confine our talk to Mahabharata epic, and in the next class we will take up how the ideals and ideas of the Mahabharata are reflected in the various Puranas. Jai Sri Ram. Vande Mataram.